Hi and welcome to pmclounge.com. Today we are looking into the entire cycle of validate scope. We'll understand how it begins, where it ends, what basically happens in your project to your deliverables when we talk about the validate scope process. So this is validate scope in 5 steps. As you've already known by now, you should already know by now that we have got deep into the understanding of validate scope. There have been a lot of videos on the channel as of late around validate scope, its differences, to help you understand what validate scope really is. And this video is again an addition to it and will definitely help you understand and master this entire validate scope process. I guarantee you, if you go over all the videos that we have put in, and I'll share a link in the description below around the scope management knowledge area, the entire playlist of it, so that you can go over, check these videos out. And I can guarantee if you go over all these videos, you'll have a fairly good understanding of validate scope, one of the most important processes from PMP exam perspective. All right, so let's get started. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into validate scope in 5 steps. First things first, you do know validate scope, where it ends, where it lands in the PGK mapping. So it is under the monitoring and controlling process group. It is under the scope management knowledge area. So this is where validate scope process falls in. But how do we get there? How do deliverables go into validate scope process, right? So that is what we are going to look into, and we'll understand this entire cycle. But you should already know by now that validate scope is the process where we obtain formal approval from the customer on the project deliverables. So the first thing to do here is that project deliverables are completed during direct and manage project work process. So this is a process in the integration management under executing process group. This process is where the actual work on projects happen. So I'll share a link in the description below, the entire playlist of the integration management knowledge area. If you're not aware of it, we have covered the entire integration management knowledge area in detail. I'll share the link to that playlist in the description below if you want to understand what direct and managed project work process is. But like I said, deliverables are made. The actual project work happens in the direct and managed project work. So project deliverables are completed during this process. This is the first step. Let's move on to the second step. Now, the second step here is that in the project quality management knowledge area, remember the previous one was integration management knowledge area. This is quality management knowledge area. Under the monitoring and controlling process group, again, you have a process known as control quality, right? So a lot of people have this confusion, especially when you're starting new and reading the PMP courseware. You tend to think that all these processes in the PGK mapping, they go one by one, they are in sequence, but that's not the case. We talked about integration management in the previous slide, where the actual work happens, and this is the quality management knowledge area where your deliverables, right? Project perform quality control. This is something which happens next. And this is where the quality control department of the company is going to test the deliverables, right? So when you do the control quality process, you are basically performing quality control on the project deliverables. Let's take an example of a software project. If you're creating a software, in the direct and manage project work is where you will create the code, you will write the code. That code will then go into the control quality process, and that is where your quality department or your testing department, the testing team, is going to perform quality control and that piece of code, and they'll make sure that there are no defects, and they'll make sure that the code meets the project requirements. So two outcomes are possible. Actually, three outcomes are possible here. One is the obvious, the dream of a coder would be that he or she, they send the code into the control quality process and it passes without any issues. The other two outcomes are that either you get certain defects, which means that you've met the requirements, but there are certain defects that needs to be fixed, right? And the second is there could be change requests, right? So you might have missed to meet the requirement and there are change requests, or you might have met the requirements, but it is not good enough, right? It is not what the customer might be looking for. So either you get defects or you get change requests. These are the two possible outcomes on the which is our second step basically during the control quality process. You get defects or you get change requests, or the third, like I mentioned, a dream for any coder would be that the code gets passed without any issues, the requirements met, no defects found. So third step is where you get back to work. You get back to the direct and manage project work process. You fix the defects. If there are change requests, that they go through the entire change management cycle. I'll share the link to the entire playlist of change management. We have discussed it quite a lot of times. It's one of the most important aspects of project management. So you should be very clear around change management, right? So if there are defects, defects will be fixed. If there are change requests, they'll go through change management cycle. The approved changes, they will also be involved. They'll also become a part of the project after that. So this is the third step. This is where quality team, the testing department, right? They have given you some work to do, and you as a coder, right? By the way, if you are a project manager and you get certain change requests, you are the one who's going to drive the changes through the change management cycle. The entire change cycle, you're going to do that. You are also going to make sure that your coders fix the defects, right? So you as a coder is going to fix the defect. You as a project manager is going to ensure that the defects are fixed. All right, so once that is done, right, once change requests have been cleared, once the defects have been fixed, you get back to the perform quality control process once again, right? So you go back to the testing department and you ask them to do their inspection again. So they'll do the inspection again. Again, there are three possible outcomes here. Either although not much of a dream now because you have already worked, right? The coders, they've already worked. So the first possible outcome is that the code passes, no defects found, no change requests required, and the code passes, right? The second is again defects, and the third is again change request. So you will go back to step three if there are any defects or change requests. But if in the first case, right, if the outcome is the first case where the code is absolutely good to go, so you're done with step 4 and you will move to step 5. Now, quite a bit of text here on this slide, but it's all important. Let's navigate it through it. So step 5 is the validate scope process, right? So this process is next. This is where customer checks the project deliverables. So you created the deliverables in the first step. You went to the testing department, you got the deliverables checked, you fixed the defects, you make sure the change requests are handled through the change management cycle, and then you went back to the testing department again, got the deliverables checked, and last step is that you come to the validate scope process and you seek the formal sign off of the customer on your project deliverables, right? So this is where we are in step 5, and then there are two scenarios. Scenario one is that the deliverables meets the requirements and the customer accepts the deliverables. This is nothing like it. You receive the formal sign off on the deliverable, whichever deliverable, right, is going through the validate scope process. Again, this process is not something which happens at the end of the project. This process is something which keeps on happening throughout the project, and we have discussed this in the past as well. Refer to that video. So first scenario is that the customer signs off, gives you the formal sign off, you're good to go. The second scenario is that customer also requests changes, or customers uncover defects, right? And these are reported to the project team for fixing. Once again, these changes, right? We talked about this earlier as well, that when the testing department came up with certain changes. Those changes went through the change management cycle. It's the same even if the customer comes up with change request. Every single change request, no matter who comes up with it, has to go through the change management cycle, right? So this is what the sub point here talks about. Change requests will be evaluated by the change control board. Again, this is a change management cycle that we are talking about. There is a change control board, the CCB. They review all the changes. You as a project manager take the changes to the CCB, and the ones that are approved by the CCB are implemented in the project and become a part of the project. So again, validate scope process. There are two scenarios. Either you receive the formal sign off, or you receive certain change requests or defects are uncovered by the customer. You fix them, you come back to step 5, once again going through the entire cycle, and you seek the formal sign off of the customer on your project deliverables. So that was all that we had in this video. Hope you were able to understand it. Hit the like button if you like this video. Hit the bell icon if you are already subscribed to the channel. If you're not subscribed, do subscribe to the channel. Check us out on our social media. Our handle is PMC Lounge on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And don't forget to check out the website pmclounge.com, your number one free resource for PMP and other project management certifications, as well as project management industry information. Thank you.